You know, they say you can tell a lot about a place by how they treat a stranger at the door. I never really understood what that meant until the day I walked into my own hotel and got turned away like I was nobody. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. Before we dive in, I'd love to know where you're watching this from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories about karma, justice, and unexpected twists, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for this one. My name is Marcus Chen, and 6 months ago, I became the owner of the Grandview Plaza Hotel in downtown Chicago, not because I inherited it or won some lottery. I built my way up. I started as a dishwasher in a small diner in Chinatown when I was 16. Fresh off the plane from Shanghai with my mother. She cleaned offices at night while I scrubbed plates until my hands were raw. We lived in a studio apartment where the radiator clanked all winter, and the summer heat turned our home into an oven. But my mother had this saying, "Success isn't about where you start, Marcus. It's about how many times you're willing to get back up." And God, did we get knocked down. Over and over. She passed away from cancer when I was 23, 2 years before I opened my first restaurant. I wish she could have seen what I built. By 35, I owned 4 successful restaurants across Chicago. By 40, I had a small hotel chain. And at 42, I made the biggest purchase of my life, the Grandview Plaza, a historic luxury hotel that had seen better days but had incredible bones. I didn't buy it to flip it. I bought it because I knew what it felt like to be invisible, to be looked at like you didn't belong. I wanted to create a place where everyone, from the CEO staying in the penthouse to the family saving up for one special night, felt valued, felt seen. The problem was, I'd been so busy with the acquisition paperwork, legal meetings, and managing my other properties that I hadn't actually set foot in the Grandview Plaza since I signed the papers 3 weeks ago. The previous owner had kept the existing management team in place, and I'd agreed to let them stay on during the transition. I trusted them to run things while I handled the business side. That was my first mistake. It was a Tuesday morning in late October. Chicago was caught in that weird between-season weather. Too cold for just a jacket, too warm for a heavy coat. The sky was that particular shade of gray that makes everything look washed out and tired. I'd spent the morning at my flagship restaurant dealing with a vendor issue, and I was wearing jeans, work boots, and an old navy blue hoodie with paint stains on the sleeve from helping my nephew with a school project over the weekend. My hair was a mess. I hadn't shaved in 3 days, and I probably looked more like a contractor than a businessman, but that was the point. I wanted to see my hotel through fresh eyes, as a regular person would experience it. The Grandview Plaza stood 23 stories tall on South Michigan Avenue, its limestone facade detailed with Art Deco flourishes from the 1920s. The original brass revolving doors gleamed in the overcast morning light. I'd always loved this building. As a kid washing dishes, I used to walk past places like this and wonder what it would be like to even step inside. Now I owned it. I pushed through the revolving door and stepped into the lobby. Immediately the atmosphere hit me. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine. Crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than my mother made in 5 years. Dark wood paneling. Leather furniture arranged in perfect symmetry. A massive flower arrangement on the central table that must have cost $1,000. Everything screamed old money and exclusivity, and yet something felt off. Cold, maybe. Unwelcoming. The staff behind the concierge desk were impeccably dressed but wore expressions that looked carved from stone. A couple in expensive coats walked past, and not a single employee acknowledged them. I made a mental note. Hospitality starts with warmth, not just polish. I headed toward the front desk, intending to introduce myself quietly to whoever was working, and maybe take a look at the reservation system. That's when I heard the voice. "Excuse me, sir." "Sir." I turned. A woman in her mid-40s was striding toward me with the kind of purposeful click-clack of heels that meant business. She wore a severe black suit, her blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, and an expression that could freeze water. Her name tag read, "Diane Morrison, Guest Services Manager." "Can I help you?" I asked, keeping my tone friendly. She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering on my paint-stained hoodie and work boots. Her lip curled just slightly, the kind of micro-expression that speaks volumes. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I blinked. "I'm sorry." "This is a luxury establishment," she said, her voice dropping lower, as if she didn't want the actual guests to hear. "We have standards. If you're here for a delivery or maintenance work, you need to use the service entrance in the back, around the corner on State Street." For a moment, I just stood there, processing. I'd expected some challenges with the new acquisition. Employee resistance to change, Maybe some operational inefficiencies to fix, but I hadn't expected this. To be profiled and dismissed in my own hotel before I'd even opened my mouth. "I'm not here for a delivery," I said carefully, watching her reaction. "I'm here to—" "Listen," she interrupted, her tone sharpening. "I don't have time for this. You clearly don't belong here. I can't have you making our actual guests uncomfortable. So either you leave now through the front door, or I'll call security and you'll leave through the service entrance. Your choice." Around us, I could feel people starting to notice. A couple near the fireplace glanced over. 2 employees at the concierge desk had stopped what they were doing to watch. The uniformed bellhop by the elevator was staring openly, and every single one of them did nothing, said nothing. They just watched as this woman tried to throw me out of my own building. I felt anger rising in my chest, hot and sharp, but beneath it was something else. Disappointment. Sadness, because I knew this woman wasn't a monster. She was a product of a system that taught her that appearance equals worth, that certain types of people belonged in certain spaces, and others didn't. I'd faced it 100 times growing up. I'd just hoped I wouldn't face it here. "I'd like to speak to the general manager," I said quietly. Diane let out a short, humorless laugh. "Mr. Patterson is far too busy to deal with this. Now, I'm asking you one more time. I'm not going anywhere," I said, keeping my voice level but firm. "I have every right to be here." Her face flushed red. She snapped her fingers at the bellhop. "David, call security. Now." The young bellhop, he couldn't have been more than 22, looked uncertain. "Miss Morrison, maybe we should—" "Now, David!" He flinched and reached for the phone on the wall. I could have stopped this right then. I could have pulled out my phone, shown her the ownership documents I had saved in my email, proved who I was, but something made me wait. I wanted to see how far this would go. I wanted to understand exactly what kind of operation was running in my hotel. 2 security guards arrived within a minute. Both were large men in dark uniforms, radios clipped to their belts. The older one, maybe 50, with gray hair and tired eyes, looked at me and then at Diane with obvious confusion. "Ms. Morrison?" he said. "This man refuses to leave," Diane said, crossing her arms. "I've asked him repeatedly to use the service entrance, and he's becoming belligerent. I need him removed from the premises." The security guard looked at me again. I could see him sizing up the situation, trying to figure out if I was actually a threat. I kept my hands visible, my posture relaxed. I knew how this worked. Any wrong move, and I'd be the problem. "Sir," the guard said, his tone more diplomatic than Diane's, "I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. I'd like to speak to Richard Patterson," I said. "Your general manager. Is he in the building?" Diane stepped forward. "You don't get to make demands. You're leaving. Now." "Actually," the security guard said, holding up a hand to Diane, "if the gentleman is requesting to speak with management, that's within his rights. Let me call up to Mr. Patterson's office." Diane's face went from red to purple. "That's completely unnecessary. I am management, and I'm telling you to remove him." But the security guard was already on his radio. "This is Jenkins in the main lobby. Is Mr. Patterson available? We have a situation that might require his attention." Static crackled. Then a crisp voice responded, "Send them up." The ride up to the 8th floor was uncomfortable. Diane stood rigid in the corner of the elevator, radiating fury. The security guard, Jenkins, kept glancing at me with something that looked like curiosity. The younger guard said nothing, but I could see him fidgeting with his radio. "You're making a huge mistake," Diane said to me as the elevator climbed. "Mr. Patterson doesn't take kindly to people wasting his time. You'll be lucky if we don't press charges for trespassing." I didn't respond. I was too busy running through scenarios in my head. This was my first real test as owner. How I handled this would set the tone for everything that came after. The executive offices were on the 8th floor, behind frosted glass doors with the hotel's logo etched in gold. Inside, everything was sleek and modern, a stark contrast to the classical lobby. A young assistant sat at a desk, looking startled by our sudden arrival. "Mr. Patterson is expecting you," she said nervously, gesturing to the corner office. Richard Patterson was exactly what I'd expected from his bio and our brief phone conversations during the acquisition. Early 60s, silver hair perfectly styled, expensive suit, a corner office with a view of Lake Michigan. He stood behind his desk with his arms crossed, and his expression was one of barely concealed annoyance. "What's this about, Diane?" he said. "I'm in the middle of preparing for the board." He stopped mid-sentence when he saw me, really saw me. His face went through a remarkable transformation, confusion, recognition, and then absolute, bloodless shock. "Mr. Chen," he whispered. Diane's head whipped toward me, then back to Patterson. "What? No, this man was in the lobby. He looked like the owner," Patterson finished, his voice hollow. "This is Marcus Chen. He owns this hotel. As of 3 weeks ago, he owns this entire building. And apparently, Diane, you just tried to have him thrown out through the service entrance." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched Diane's face cycle through every emotion: confusion, disbelief, horror, and finally, desperate panic. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He wasn't dressed. How was I supposed to? She turned to me, her voice cracking. "Mr. Chen, I am so sorry. I didn't recognize you. I thought you thought I was what?" I said quietly. "Not rich enough to be here? Not the right kind of person for your lobby? That's exactly what you meant." I turned to Patterson, who looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. "How long has she worked here?" 8 years, Patterson said. He cleared his throat. "Ms. Morrison has been with the Grandview Plaza for 8 years. She was promoted to guest services manager 3 years ago. And in those 8 years, how many guests do you think she's treated the way she treated me today?" I asked. "How many people has she judged based on their clothes, their appearance, their skin color?" Diane was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Please, Mr. Chen, I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I have a family. I need this job. Please." "You should have thought about that before you decided who deserves respect and who doesn't," I said, but I wasn't angry anymore. I was just tired of this same story playing out over and over. "Mr. Patterson, I'm going to need a full staff meeting today. Everyone from management to housekeeping. Can you arrange that?" "Of course," Patterson said immediately. "I'll have everyone assembled in the conference room within the hour." "Good." I looked at Diane. "You can attend the meeting. After that, we'll discuss your future here." She nodded, unable to speak, and fled the office. Jenkins, the security guard, gave me a small nod that might have been respect before following her out. Patterson and I stood alone in his office. The air between us was thick with tension. "Mr. Chen," he began, "I take full responsibility for—" "Do you?" I interrupted. "Because from what I saw down there, this isn't just about one employee having a bad day. This is about culture, about what's acceptable in this building. And that culture comes from the top." Patterson's jaw tightened. "I've run this hotel for 15 years. We've maintained a 5-star rating. Our occupancy rates are above industry average. Our guest satisfaction scores mean nothing if you're only measuring satisfaction for certain types of guests," I said. "Tell me something, Richard. Would Diane have treated a white man in a hoodie the same way she treated me?" He opened his mouth, closed it. We both knew the answer. "I need to understand something," I continued, moving to the window to look out at the city. The lake was gray and choppy under the October sky. "When I bought this hotel, I did my due diligence. I reviewed the financials, the maintenance records, the employee files. On paper, everything looked good, but I'm realizing I didn't look deep enough. I didn't see the things that don't show up in spreadsheets." "What do you want me to say?" Patterson asked, and for the first time he sounded genuinely lost. "That we're not perfect, that sometimes our standards of excellence have created an environment that's exclusionary. Maybe that's true, but I've been in hospitality for 30 years, Mr. Chen. I know this business, and I know that our guests expect a certain level of humanity," I suggested. "Warmth, basic human decency." He winced. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, turning back to face him. "We're going to rebuild this place from the ground up, not the building, the culture. I'm going to spend the next month here working alongside the staff. I'm going to see how every department operates. And then we're going to make changes. Big ones. If you're not on board with that, tell me now, and we'll part ways amicably. But if you stay, I need your full commitment." Patterson took a long breath. I could see him calculating, weighing his options. He'd built a career here. This hotel was his legacy, but he was also smart enough to know that the industry was changing, that the old ways weren't working anymore. "I'm in," he said finally. "Whatever you need." The staff meeting that afternoon was tense. The hotel's main conference room held about 80 employees. Everyone from housekeeping supervisors to front desk clerks to kitchen staff. They filled the rows of chairs with expressions ranging from curious to worried to hostile. Word had clearly spread about the incident in the lobby. I stood at the front of the room in my paint-stained hoodie, work boots still muddy from the morning. I hadn't changed on purpose. I wanted them to see me exactly as Diane had seen me. "My name is Marcus Chen," I began. "As of 3 weeks ago, I'm the owner of this hotel. Some of you heard about what happened this morning in the lobby. For those who didn't, I'll give you the short version. I walked in dressed like this, and your guest services manager tried to have me removed through the service entrance because she decided I didn't look like I belonged here." Uncomfortable shifting in the seats. Some people looked at Diane, who sat in the back row, eyes red and swollen. Others stared at their hands. "Now, I could stand up here and make this about one person's mistake," I continued. "I could fire Diane, make an example out of her, and pretend the problem is solved. But that would be a lie, because this isn't about one person. This is about all of us. I paused, making eye contact with people throughout the room. I grew up poor. My mother and I came to this country with 2 suitcases and $1,000. I washed dishes in Chinatown while my mom cleaned offices at night. We were invisible to most people, the kind of people who get told to use the service entrance. And I want you to understand something. I didn't buy this hotel to turn it into some exclusive club where only certain people are welcome. I bought it because I believe hospitality means all people deserve to be treated with dignity, rich or poor, black or white, wearing a suit or wearing work boots. A woman in a housekeeping uniform raised her hand tentatively. She was Latina, maybe 50, with tired eyes that reminded me of my mother's. Yes, I said. What are you going to do with Ms. Morrison? She asked in accented English. I looked at Diane. She was staring at the floor, shoulders shaking slightly. That's between Ms. Morrison and me, I said. But I'll tell you this. We all deserve a chance to do better, to be better. The question is whether we're willing to do the work. After the meeting, I asked Diane to stay behind. We sat across from each other at the conference table, and she looked like she'd aged 10 years in the past few hours. I need to understand something, I said. Why did you assume I didn't belong here? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because that's what I was taught, she said. When I started in hospitality 20 years ago, my first manager told me that our job was to create an atmosphere of exclusivity. That meant keeping out the wrong element. And over time, I internalized that. I started seeing people as threats to that atmosphere instead of people. Do you understand how messed up that is? I asked. Yes. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face again. God, yes. Seeing your face when Mr. Patterson said your name. I've never been so ashamed in my life. And the worst part is, you're not the first person I've treated that way. You're just the first person who turned out to own the building. At least, she was honest. Here's my offer, I said. You can stay, but you're going to be demoted from guest services manager to front desk associate. You're going to work alongside the people you used to manage, and you're going to learn what hospitality actually means from the ground up. You're also going to participate in mandatory bias training, which I'm implementing for all staff. And if I hear one complaint, about you treating any guest or employee with anything less than respect, you're done. No second chances. Understand? She nodded vigorously. Thank you. Thank you so much. I won't let you down. Don't thank me, I said. Thank the second chance I never got when I was washing dishes and getting treated like I was invisible. Now get out of here and think about the kind of person you want to be. Over the next month, I kept my word. I worked in that hotel every single day. I spent a week alongside housekeeping, learning their roots and hearing their stories. I worked the night shift at the front desk, checking in guests at 3 a.m. and handling complaints. I helped the kitchen staff with prep work during their busiest hours. I sat with the maintenance crew and learned about every pipe and wire in the building. And what I found was both heartbreaking and inspiring. I found incredible people who'd been working their tails off for years, often unrecognized and underappreciated. I found systemic issues, outdated equipment, insufficient staffing, policies that prioritized image over substance. But I also found possibility. Maria, the housekeeper who'd asked the question at the meeting, had been working at the Grandview Plaza for 12 years. She'd been passed over for promotion repeatedly despite glowing performance reviews. When I asked her why, her supervisor couldn't give me a straight answer. I promoted her to housekeeping supervisor within 2 weeks. David, the young bellhop who'd hesitated to call security on me, turned out to have a degree in hospitality management, but couldn't get promoted because Patterson believed you needed to look the part for front-facing roles. David was black, and apparently that didn't fit Patterson's vision. I moved him to an assistant manager training program. One by one, I found the people who'd been overlooked, underestimated, or pushed aside, and I gave them opportunities. As for Patterson, true to his word, he adapted. It wasn't easy for him. I could see him struggling with his old instincts, but he listened, he learned, and slowly, the culture began to shift. Diane surprised me. She took the demotion without complaint and threw herself into the work with a humility I hadn't expected. I watched her interact with guests, especially those who might have once triggered her biases, and saw genuine effort to change. It wasn't perfect, and it wouldn't happen overnight, but it was real. 3 months after my unceremonious entry through the front doors, the Grandview Plaza was a different place, not because we'd renovated or changed the physical space. That would come later. But because the people inside it were different. The employees smiled more, laughed more, treated guests and each other with warmth instead of cold professionalism. Our guest satisfaction scores actually went up, which shocked Patterson until I reminded him that people can feel the difference between a place that performs hospitality and a place that embodies it. I was in my office, Patterson's old office, which I'd taken over, when my assistant buzzed me. "Mr. Chen, there's a family at the front desk. They're asking specifically to speak with you." I frowned. "Did they say why?" They said you'd want to hear their story." Curious, I headed down to the lobby. A Latino couple stood at the front desk with their 2 kids, a boy about 10 and a girl maybe 7. They looked nervous but determined. The man held his daughter's hand tightly. "Mr. Chen," the woman said as I approached, "I'm Gloria Martinez. This is my husband Carlos and our children." "It's nice to meet you," I said, shaking hands. "What can I do for you?" Gloria glanced at her husband, then back at me. "Last year we saved up to stay here for one night. It was our anniversary, and we wanted to do something special. But when we arrived," she paused, emotion thick in her voice. "The woman at the desk looked at us like we didn't belong. She asked if we were sure we were at the right hotel. She made us show our reservation confirmation 3 times. Our kids felt it. We all felt it." My chest tightened. "I'm so sorry that happened to you." "We saw the news story about you," Carlos said, "about how you were treated when you came here, and about the changes you're making. We wanted to come back, to try again, to see if it's really different." I looked at them. This family who'd been hurt in my hotel, who'd been made to feel small, and I felt that familiar anger mixed with determination. "Let me check you in personally," I said. Their stay was comped, upgraded to a suite with a view of the lake. I made sure every staff member they encountered went above and beyond. Not as a performance, but because that's what hospitality is supposed to be. When they checked out 2 days later, Gloria was crying again, but this time they were good tears. "You did it," she said. "You really changed this place. We're still working on it," I said. "Every single day. But thank you for giving us a second chance." After they left, I stood in the lobby. The same lobby where Diane had tried to throw me out 6 months ago. The morning light streamed through the windows, catching the crystal chandeliers and making them sparkle. The marble floors gleamed. The leather furniture was perfectly arranged. But now there was something else. Warmth, laughter from the concierge desk, a bellhop helping an elderly woman with her bags and actually chatting with her, learning her name. Maria directing her housekeeping team with confidence and kindness. This was what I'd wanted to build. Not just a hotel, but a place where everyone belonged. My phone buzzed. A text from Patterson. "Board meeting next week. They want a full report on the changes. They're nervous about the costs." I smiled and typed back, "Let them be nervous. Some things are worth more than the bottom line, because at the end of the day, that's what this whole journey taught me." My mother was right. Success isn't about where you start, but it's also not just about how many times you get back up. It's about what you build when you do. It's about using whatever power you gain to create something better than what came before. I bought this hotel because I knew what it felt like to be invisible, to be judged before I even opened my mouth, to be told I didn't belong. And now, every single day, I get to make sure nobody else feels that way when they walk through these doors. That's not just business, that's justice, that's home.